Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. And guys, this one is a big one, and I know a lot of you have been asking for it. We're taking a deep dive into emotional exhaustion today,
Yeah.
and we're basing this all on some really insightful notes that were sent in, actually in Spanish.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we're going to be kind of tapping into those and really trying to unpack some of the wisdom and the experience that was shared there.
Awesome.
We're talking about something much more profound than just like those days when you wake up and you're like, ugh, Monday. Like
Oh,
we've all had those days, right?
absolutely.
Where you just want to crawl back in bed, you need a vacation, you need a nap, you need a coffee, you need all the things.
Yeah. Yes.
But the notes that you all sent in describe something kind of deeper, something more persistent. This feeling of just like this deep fatigue that really casts a shadow over everything.
It's true. And you use the term fatigue, but it's also, I think, it's emotional and mental. It's this feeling of being just like weighed down constantly.
Like you're carrying around way more than you can handle.
Exactly. And that's actually, I think that was a really powerful analogy that that the notes use, is comparing it to carrying a heavy load. Like you're just carrying around all this stuff all the time.
It's so true. And I think what's interesting is that, it's not just an analogy, right? The research actually backs this up.
Right.
Like there's um there's actual science behind this feeling.
Totally.
And back in 2017, the Association Americana de Psicologia, they actually directly linked emotional exhaustion to chronic stress.
Mm.
And when they talk about the symptoms of this, it's like these are things that I think so many of us can relate to. We're talking about trouble sleeping, feeling constantly on edge, just feeling completely and utterly swamped.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so important to remember that this is incredibly common. Like so many people are going through this. It's not just you.
Absolutely.
And the encouraging thing is that there are things that you can do about it.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's dive into some of these steps that we can take, because I think the notes did a really beautiful job of not just describing the problem, but also offering some really tangible solutions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the first one, and I think this is huge, is learning to recognize your limits.
Yeah.
And this really resonated with me because I think sometimes it's easy to feel like setting boundaries or saying no is selfish.
Right.
But the notes are very clear.
Yeah.
This is not about being selfish. It is about self-preservation.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's so important because you can't, it's like that old saying, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? You have to take care of yourself first.
Yeah, you got to fill your own cup. And what I thought was really cool is that there's actually research to back this up. So there was a study done at Harvard back in 2018, and they found that people who were really good at setting healthy boundaries, who weren't afraid to say no when they needed to, they reported feeling less emotionally drained.
Interesting.
But not just that, they also reported feeling more satisfied overall.
Oh, wow.
So it's like by saying no more often, you're not just protecting yourself from taking on too much, but you're actually kind of opening up space for more joy, more satisfaction.
It's like you're saying yes to yourself.
Yes, you are saying yes to your own well-being.
I love
Yeah.
that. Okay, so we've talked about setting boundaries, saying no when we need to. But what about when those emotions, they still creep in, right? Like, what do we do then? Because it's so easy to just try to like power through, ignore them.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But the notes are very clear on this. Bottling things up, it backfires. Like, it always backfires.
It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater.
Yes. You can try, but eventually
That's gone.
it's going to pop up, and probably with more force than if you just kind of let it,
Yeah, you got to let it float. Let it do its thing.
Exactly.
So the notes really emphasize the importance of finding healthy outlets.
Yes.
Whether that is
Yeah.
talking to a friend, seeking support from a therapist, even just journaling. All these things can be so powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, just getting it out, externalizing it in some way. Because it's not just about, feeling better emotionally.
Right.
Unexpressed emotions can actually manifest physically, too.
Oh, 100%. It's like your body's way of saying, hello, pay attention. Something's not right here.
Exactly.
Like a little alarm bell.
Yeah. And speaking of paying attention, this next point, it might seem a little counterintuitive, especially when you're feeling completely drained and exhausted, but it's so powerful.
Oh.
And that is gratitude.
I know. Gratitude is like, I feel like that's like the buzzword.
Yeah, it's become a little bit maybe cliche.
It can feel a little cheesy, like, oh, just be grateful,
Right.
But your notes actually do a really good job of highlighting that gratitude can really shift your perspective.
Yeah, because when you're in that cycle of emotional exhaustion, it's so easy to just get stuck
Totally.
in this like negative spiral of focusing on everything that's wrong and everything that's overwhelming you. But when you can take a step back and consciously make an effort to acknowledge the good things, even if they're small, it can really have a profound impact on how you feel.
It's like hitting the reset button a little bit.
Yes, exactly.
Reminding yourself that, okay, yeah, things are tough, but they're still good.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's research to back this up.
Of course there is.
There's a study from the University of California back in 2014, and they found that regularly practicing gratitude was linked to lower stress levels, lower anxiety levels, and not just that, people who cultivate gratitude, they tend to have higher levels of overall life satisfaction.
So it's not about ignoring the hard stuff,
Yeah.
but it's about making sure that we're also making space for the good.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, like, this doesn't have to be complicated.
No, not at all.
It really can be as simple as, like, just taking a few minutes each day to write down, like, the 3 things that you're grateful for.
Yeah. Even just starting with one thing, like what's one good thing that happened today?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you ready for the grand finale?
Yes. Hit me.
All right, so your notes are very clear.
Uh-huh.
This one is non-negotiable,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to tackling emotional exhaustion,
Ah.
and that is sleep.
Oh, yes. Sleep is so crucial.
It's everything.
It really is.
And what I thought was so interesting about how you talked about this in the notes is that it's like sleep is almost like the foundation
Yes.
that everything else is built upon.
Because think about it, like we talked about setting boundaries, we talked about
Mhm.
self-care, we talked about managing those emotions. When you're sleep deprived,
Forget about it.
you can't do any of that effectively.
You're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. It's like trying to build a house on a shaky foundation. It's just not going to work.
This is not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I love that your notes really drove home that link between poor sleep and just feeling completely emotionally wrung out.
Yeah.
Like,
And the research backs this up. There was a study done in 2016 published in the Journal of Sleep and Mental Health, and they found that consistently getting 7 or more hours of quality sleep was linked to lower levels of emotional exhaustion, which, like, makes sense.
yeah.
But not just that, it also makes you much better at handling stress when it comes up.
So if you are serious about tackling emotional exhaustion, sleep has to be a priority.
Yeah.
Like it is the cornerstone of all of this. Well, so we covered a lot today, and it's easy to maybe feel overwhelmed after all that, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, there's so much to think about.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
But if there's one thing I want you to walk away from this deep dive with, it's this. You are not powerless when it comes to emotional exhaustion.
Absolutely not. Like, you really do have more control than you might think.
You really do. And you don't have to do everything at once. These techniques backed by like solid research, they're here to empower you, to help you reclaim
Right.
that feeling of like lightness of having control again.
Yeah, and I think it's about taking those small steps. You don't have to, overhaul your entire life overnight.
It's those little things, those little shifts that can make such a difference.
Exactly.
So as we kind of wrap up here, I'm curious, what resonated most with you? Like what's one small manageable thing that you could do today to prioritize your own well-being?
Yeah, I love that.
Maybe it's like jotting down a couple things you're grateful for. Maybe it's thinking about one boundary that you can set in an area where you're feeling like really overextended.
Yeah, even just the awareness, right? Just like, okay, I'm aware of this now. I'm going to start paying attention to it.
Exactly. It's about finding what works for you, what feels doable, what feels sustainable in your life. And hey, if you find something that really clicks for you, like a self-care practice or a boundary setting strategy that's like, oh my gosh, this is changing the game,
Yes.
we want to hear about it.
We want to know.
Keep diving deep into your own well-being because you absolutely deserve to feel your best.
Here, here.
Until next time, everyone.